final part of this tape, John Gultig, the editor of this module, spoke to module coordinator Temba Ndlovu and to some teachers involved in a school change project based in KwaZulu-Natal. The School-Based Reform Initiative, or SBRI as it is called, characterizes its approach as one which takes a school as community line, but it believes that it adds components that give strength to this approach. John Gultig's first question to Ndlovu was about the principles of SBRI and how its approach differs from an organizational approach.
Our main belief is that change of schools and development of schools belongs to the people in those schools. And also, we do not see schools as organizations that are neat and tight and closed from their environment, but in fact we see schools as part of the community. Lifelong learning forms a very core understanding of our conceptualization of school change, which is basically that schools and their communities ought to be learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together, and learning to be in a continuous kind of way. What is important for us is for schools to transform themselves, to change themselves for the benefit of the communities, and for the communities to also reclaim their schools and be part of the development of their schools.
How would you see it as being similar or different to projects like the Teacher Improvement Project, the Davidoff Project in the Western Cape, or the Shoshanguve School as Community Project?
Basically, the key difference with the TIP model is that TIP is an organizational development approach. And the emphasis is on starting with the school and looking at the school as an organization and looking at the community as part of the environment in which the school is situated. And the strong argument from the TIP model is that you develop your school so that it is a strong learning organization, and then from then the school will then impact on the community. We believe that there are no boundaries between the school and the community, and particularly in our South African context, schools have a responsibility to play a social development function. That would entail deepening democracy, that would entail developing interpersonal skills, ensuring equity, ensuring excellence. But working with the school, moving out to the community and developing communities as well, as much as communities moving into the schools and developing schools.
But what does this notion of schools interacting with their communities mean in practice? Koli Ngabasi, Lucky Mtusi, and Don Ngomezulu are teachers involved with the SBRI project. Here is what they say about how they have made links between their schools and their communities.
One of the things that we are trying to do with the initiative is like our schools at the beginning of the year, they are full of grass. And take 1,000 rand from this 5,000. Buy some machine to cut grass. Take community people that are unemployed. Invite them to come to school, cut the grass within the school, and then say to them, okay, take this machine, use it for your own benefit. There is a school, there is a community. And the community can actually use the resources of the school to benefit the community.
Another thing we have done in the school where I've come from, it's a technical school. We have invited members from the community and we have trained them in bricklaying, and then we have given them certificates.
One of the schools which has been struck by vandalism, we had a case where 15 computers were stolen from the school, and we suspect the community is also involved. And the initiative, we took it to the principal that how would if we try and involve the community? And a decision was taken that there should be a sort of a program where the community around the school, they come to the school and learn computer, and find that the people around, they organize themselves, and they were part of the President Award. And we find that after that, there hasn't been that thing of coming to the school, stealing of the computers. In other words, we are saying to the people, use the school, don't break it, don't destroy it, which means that it is a part of resource, you can use it.
That certainly sounds exciting. Gultig asked Ndlovu to explain what he sees as the difference between the SBRI and the Sustainable School Development approach.
The sustainable school development as a community approach, we actually have a lot of commonality in the sense that we all start with the school as part of a community. Hence, we would rather talk about schools as learning communities rather than schools as learning organizations. But I think where we as the SBRI make different emphasis is that we agree that you get a lot of strategies that are implemented in the organizational development approach, and we use them quite freely and quite usefully. But in addition to that, we have two major emphases, which maybe the sustainable school development as a community approach does not look much into at this stage, and that is strengthening the research component, strengthening the reflection aspect, and making that quite explicit within the agenda of the school.
We then asked one of the teachers what they thought about research and whether it assisted them in any way. Corley had this to say.
There was a research that was done by SBRI people, and in my school, the data that was collected out of that research, it clearly indicated the ineffectiveness of the management, and it was from that kind of data where the SBRI decided that something has to be done about the management if the results are like this. And then we attended a workshop for the management and all that. I think that's the kind of a success, because when the data was analyzed in my school, no one said, okay, this is wrong. Everybody accepted, and we felt that we should do something about this. That was the greatest success for me.
It seems that Corley found help from the research, not only as a tool in her school, but as a satisfying source of professional development for herself. But let's return to Ndlovu as he explains the second difference between the SBRI and the Sustainable School Development approach.
The second one, bringing in what we call pastoral care for all the stakeholders involved. And lastly is that we are saying now it's time we balanced support and pressure.
What are some of the lessons you've learned?
What we've really achieved in the 3 or so years is developing a base for change to take place. And in the process also developed and strengthened a strong cadre of movers and pushers and change agents. We've also been successful in bringing about dialogue about the need for change, or where some people feel there is no need for change, but the dialogue at least is there. In terms of failures or maybe weaknesses, I would think in developing this group of pushers, we've not concentrated adequately on moving the rest of the staff within schools. And also the other weakness has been on the ground, we haven't really delivered adequately. If we were to be judged on the basis of how much of impact are you doing in the classroom, and you are going to look at how teachers are teaching now and how learners are learning, the initiative will score very weakly, because the emphasis has been always on the culture, always on the how things are being done, and not very much into the impact in the classroom itself. And perhaps the other weakness has been a lack of support for our change agents and movers. For other people involved in the process of change, the advice would be build up a support structure for your change agents, for your movers, because the process can be very frustrating and emotionally taxing. People need to have a situation where they simply sit down outside the day-to-day pressures of school to talk about the difficulties that they are experiencing and share those. And maybe lastly, the other lesson we have learned is if you try and go too much the route of bottom up, you lose out in the end. The reason why you lose out is that you then get your existing structures, which are management within the school, like the principal, like your HODs, saying, we want to support this, but we do not want to be directly involved. In a way, what you then do, you lose that leadership capacity and skill that already exists within the school, which if you had built into the system would quite easily build the capacity of the other teachers. And it's only now that we've realized that in fact we need to go back, get the principals on board, make this a very strict accountability line function kind of exercise, so that also at the end of the day the process of change gets to be lodged where it belongs, which is with the Department of Education and with the departmental personnel and officials.
That brings us to the end of this tape. I hope you have found the ideas from the various speakers interesting and challenging. While virtually all the speakers advocated a more democratic approach to the way in which our schools are organized, they also differed as to what that democracy should look like and how we should go about achieving it. Think about the different ideas, try them out in practice, and begin developing your own theory about school organization and change. Good luck.